Hello and welcome to the Big Ideas Show. I'm Liu Batchelor and I'm very excited to be joined today by John Nicholson from the Community Driving School.
Good evening, Lou. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you for joining me today. And can you tell the listeners out there, what is it that the Community Driving School does?
We provide sponsored driving lessons in return for community-based work volunteering in order to give people hope and access to jobs which were previously beyond them.
Brilliant. So we're going to be talking more about that after these titles. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, John, for joining us. This is the Big Ideas Show, the show all about giving people and projects, just like John's, the opportunity and the platform to get out there, to share them with the people of Folkestone and Kent and further afield. I'm very excited to be in a new venue tonight. We're at the Grand in Folkestone, so a massive thank you to them. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsors and our contributors for helping us make this possible. So, John, you're the first in the lineup of our new theme, which is around opportunities and support for young people. And the Community Driving School is an initiative you started yourself, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah. The embryonic idea formed in about 2015.
Yep.
So, and the company was formed in 2017 in May. So we're celebrating our second anniversary this May.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and as I understand it, you provide, it's not just the lessons, the driving lessons that you provide, it's kind of the confidence support, the encouragement and the mentoring as well, right? But can you tell us a little bit more, kind of why is it so important that young people have this opportunity and this access to driving?
That's a really good question. It didn't dawn on me until I retrained to be a driving instructor how vital and important it is for people to have a driving licence. Mm-hmm. I've done searches on several job sites, and the most recent was yesterday on Indeed.com, and there were over 1,500 jobs that required a driving licence. Not all of them were to do with driving. One was an apprenticeship for a print operator.
Yep.
One was for a sales administrator. One was for a customer service clerk, plumber's mate. So it's that vital. And
Yep.
people in poverty are being prevented from applying for those jobs because they cannot afford a structured basis of lessons.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about that then? Because you specifically work with people, don't you, that are kind of at need, don't have the access to
Yes.
maybe get those lessons. Who are the people specifically you help? I know you work with a number of young people. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I myself grew up in poverty and I know what it's like. And just to have that extra hand to help you get on the ladder of life. And I've met some wonderful young people who, it's life-changing getting that driving licence. It really is. When you see the look on their faces, it means that much. I've had a young lad with Asperger's who broke down in tears, and
Wow.
not given to emotion, people with Asperger's, but it meant that much to him.
Yeah.
And it's vital that, particularly with what's going to happen in 2019, that young people are given an opportunity to improve their lives and feel worth something. One thing I've discovered, because when you're an instructor in a car, you're not only an instructor, you're a teacher, you're an agony uncle, aunt, whatever, you're a friend,
Yeah.
you're a mentor. And a lot of these young people, if they themselves haven't tried self-harming or suicide in some way, they know someone who has. And that to
scary.
me speaks volumes for the age group that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
The pressures that these young people are under is wrong.
Yeah.
And if I can alleviate some of that by doing what I do, then I'll carry on doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned before about the cycle that it can be the real challenge, right, to be stuck in. You mentioned about confidence, but also the kind of cycle of poverty and not being able to kind of get themselves out. In your opinion, what is it that comes first? Is it that they need the confidence, or is it that they need the practical support to get
That's a
them
good question. That's a really good question. In many ways, they kind of link together. From my own experience of living in poverty, believe it or not, I used to go without food so my sister could eat. It's probably why I made up for it since. You do suffer a lack of confidence because you are excluded from certain groups.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, particularly with young carers, you don't have a personal life. You can't mix in with the others because, well, they've got the latest phone.
Yeah.
They'll mock you for yours. You don't have the latest item of clothing, so you don't really fit in. So that in itself breeds a lack of confidence. So the two are very much interlinked. Is there a primary source? I think we could probably link it to poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lack of funding and a lack of opportunity.
Yeah.
How many people do we meet on a daily basis that say, oh, I come from a council estate, therefore my life is this?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it sounds like what you're doing, rather than it being about charity and giving them something, you're providing them the opportunity to get themselves out of poverty and take that first step.
Even though
then get the work.
You're in poverty, you've still got self-respect.
Yeah.
And if you can keep that self-respect by feeling as though you've earned what we're providing, then that's a huge step in giving someone a bit of confidence to say, I've earned this.
Yeah.
I've put time in, I've learned new skills, my CV now shows this. I've got this, and I've worked for it. I couldn't afford it, but I've worked for it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly doors open.
Yeah.
And one thing leads to another.
So how does it work then once someone has got that driving license? How do they then afford to get the car or take that next step and get that job? Does it become easier? Or?
It is a good question. First of all, in order to get a car, you need to have a job that pays well.
Yeah.
And so they'll have that. There might be a transition period where they'll need a car. This is something that we've overcome where people have donated cars.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And, okay, the next step is insurance, but from a small program that I'm trying to engage with insurance companies if they will do a special package for people that come through my scheme. My background is sales and marketing, so I'm not afraid of knocking on doors and asking, but at the moment, I'm trying to be everything. I'm trying to be CEO, driving instructor, T-boy, absolutely everything. And it's difficult cramming everything in.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got some lovely people behind me. I've got TJ and Zoe, who are absolutely brilliant. And I've got to be honest, I couldn't do it without you guys.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, you've done a great job. It's been amazing. It's lovely to see how passionate you are about it.
I am.
It is absolutely amazing what you've done, and you've got amazing people by the sounds of it here in the audience as well.
Yes, I have, yeah.
So we're going to take a very quick break now. I want to hear more about your story, kind of where that passion comes from, because passion like that is really infectious. So we'll be back after this short break. Welcome back. You've been hearing about John and the Community Driving School and what amazing stuff you've done it's quite a short time, isn't it? How long have you been running it?
Nearly 2 years, our second anniversary on the 11th of May 2019.
Wow. Well, congratulations and how much you've done so far. But I want to hear a little bit more. The Big Idea Show is all about getting a little bit under the skin and hearing about where that passion, where that enthusiasm, and ultimately all that hard work has come from. So you haven't always been a driving instructor, have you?
No.
You've come from us chatting before,
had
various different roles up to this point. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how it got you to right this place where you are now?
Potted history. I grew up in southeast London. My father was a violent alcoholic. He used to beat my mum, and I grew up watching that. To me, it was normal. And I do have a brother who had a different father to me. And my dad didn't want my brother around. So at the age of 5, when I came along, my brother was turfed out to my mum's sisters to be raised, and I lost out on a brother. And I used to watch my dad hit my mum, and he would hit me when he'd finished with mum. When he was sober, my dad was a wonderful man. I want to make that absolutely clear. And yes, I loved him. To me, it was just natural as part of growing up. And as I got older, I eventually realised I don't have to take this. And I did swimming. I represented London.
Wow.
And so I was quite well built. And one day I just flipped. I held a knife at Dad's throat and said, "You hit Mum again, I'm going to kill you."
Wow.
And that's when Mum realised, I need to make a change here. So Mum and Dad went their separate ways. Dad went back up north and he took his own life. And I had to go to work at age 15 because there wasn't the backstop of support that there is in this modern world. And I provided for Mum and my sister. And I did a variety of jobs. I started out at Christie's Auctioneers, went through to a couple of traffic signal companies, one of which the owner of the company fled to Spain with the company funds 3 months before I was going to get married. And I ended up at the London Stock Exchange, where in 2014 I tried to take my own life.
Wow.
Through the pressures of what I was doing.
Wow.
That was, I think, it's a big thing because obviously since trying what I did, suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50. I was 47 when I tried. And I think it's because men don't open up about it. And they should. On the same day that I made it through, someone I've met on the networking that you do in Kent, his brother didn't make it. And since hearing that, I kind of get a bit of survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And I know I shouldn't, but it just makes me think, well, why didn't I go through with it? How come I was able to come through and this man wasn't? And it's hard. And community driving school has given me a diversion away from all of that.
Yeah.
It's given me a cause, a passion. And one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, when you think I used to have to watch my mum being beaten, I used to have to protect my sister, I used to have to do everything.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I've ever had to do was tell my son and my twin girls, I tried to kill myself.
Wow.
And I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
Ever. Ever. And it kind of made a resurgence in 2017 when a friend of mine who worked at the same place I did in the city, he did kill himself on the day before my 50th birthday. Threw himself off the 7th floor of the building and never got up again. So suicide is very much a big thing in my life.
Yeah.
From my dad, from my own experience and from people around me, which is why I'm passionate about this, because I think people in poverty can often be driven to suicide. I watched a documentary by Professor Green. If you're listening, Professor Green, if you're watching, get in touch with me. I really want to speak to you. And him and I live very similar lives. And his father committed suicide. And he was talking to people in poverty who felt the only way out was to end it. And that's not the way. It's not the way. There are other ways. I'm lucky, community driving school's my beacon.
Yeah.
It leads me out there. And that's why I'm passionate about helping those who can't help themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like you've definitely channeled it into such positive work, both, I guess, helping other people that might potentially kind of suffer the same kind of challenges that maybe you did, but also you're doing such great things.
Well, yeah, I mention it to pupils beforehand because if it makes them feel uncomfortable, because I've done a couple of things, newspaper articles about suicide. And interestingly, actually, I met an instructor in Canterbury in 2016 who approached me and said, "Is your name John Nicholson?" I said, "Yeah." When our pupils went out on test, he came up to me and he gave me a big hug, and he said, "I owe you my life." How? I read your article in the KM Gazette and it saved my life.
Yeah.
And it's now why I'm an instructor.
Yeah, amazing.
So that made me realise I'm not going to shut up about suicide.
Yeah.
If I can save one more person, great.
Yeah. Sounds like completely no pun intended here, but the community driving school is a vehicle for something so much bigger.
It is, yeah.
Than driving lessons, and
it
sounds like you've already had so much benefit from people, even just in writing and things like that, and young people.
I can engage with them on a level as well through experience.
Yeah.
And I think because some of the people I teach, they're not academic.
Yeah.
And they feel that goes against them. Well, that's not true. And you don't have to have a piece of paper to say you can do something. I left school with 1 CSE because I couldn't study with obviously home life and things. But at the same time, you've got to feel self-worth. You've got to feel you can achieve something, and you can. By God, you can. And I want these people that we're teaching, they can stand up and hold their head up high and say, look, I didn't do much at school, didn't do much, but I've turned my life around.
Yeah.
One of the people I've helped was an ex-offender. He's turned his life around, he's now self-employed, painting and decorating.
Amazing.
Great.
Good. Good stuff. Really good. So you've got a hugely powerful story. I'm sure there'll be loads of people watching out there that kind of would love to support you in any way that they can. How can people help the Community Driving School?
It's a good question. There are many ways people can do things. We've got people doing things in kind, but what we really need is cash. We can get an advert on the car for 50 quid a month. Mm-hmm. Small advert on the car. If you want bigger, so the price increases. And we've got several firms doing that. We've got individuals making one-off donations. They can contact us via Facebook, via the website. I have a Twitter page, but I'm not very good with Twitter. And we've got Instagram and other bits and pieces, but through the website or Facebook is probably the best.
Okay, and can you tell us what's the website? Where should people go?
www.thecds.org.uk.
Brilliant, and I assume if they put the Community Driving School in, it'll come up in Google as well.
Yes, it will actually, yes.
Good
That's
stuff.
a good point, yes.
Absolutely, and we'll be linking to all of the information on here and everything. John, It's been absolutely wonderful chatting. I'm sorry we can't talk for longer. I'd love to hear more about your story.
And that's boring.
Hugely proud. Thank you so much indeed for being so open, so honest. I think
Thank you.
Your story is going to be
Thanks for giving me the platform
really
to do it, because as I say, I will not shut up about it.
Good. That's what I like to hear, and I'm looking forward to seeing you more out there in the media, locally and further afield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our audience for attending tonight. And I have to say a big thank you to multiple contributors without whom this event, this filming would not be possible. So we have the Grand in Folkestone here. They are our venue, and they've been wonderful hosts so far. We have our sponsors, who are the Glass Whiteboard Company. They have been our long-standing sponsors, so a massive thank you to them. And our contributors as part of the team. We have Hax from Prisma Broadcast, we have Erin from 6-2, and we have Warren from Flourish, as well as our wonderful crew here. We have Hannah, Maddie, and Gary sneaking here behind the scenes. You can't see them, but big thank you to them. And if you out there want to support the Big Ideas Show in any way, or even just to get in touch with some of the amazing people that we'll be hearing from so far, but also in the weeks and months to come, then please do get in touch. We are The Big Ideas Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, or you can find me, Liu Batchelor, and we'll help you kind of help us get the message out about more wonderful people here like John and some of the other wonderful projects we have got coming up for the rest of this month. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.